the United States. Hey. Hi, Egg Princess. That's my literal first ever live comment. So thank you for that. We're talking about the rail strike, the union rail strike. I was just about to finish up, but since you're here, is there any questions you have about the rail strike? I'll answer. Or if you don't care, you can watch this back later. What perspective would that be? I'm willing to talk to anybody. Oh, there's a rail strike going on in the UK. I hadn't heard about this. Let's do some Googling, shall we? Oh, rail strike UK. Well, I have some good news for you. If you're in complete solidarity with U.S. rail workers, then we are one of the same mind. Train strike dates likely to be announced next week after Queen's funeral. Ooh, Bloomberg's usually kind of crappy, but we'll pull the individual facts out of it. Two of Britain's largest ports are bracing for overlapping dock worker walkouts in the coming weeks, threatening more disruption of the nation's trade flows over dispute and pay. So yours is pay disputes, huh? Mick Lynch, you say? All right. Yeah, here it's not so much pay. Here it's Mick Lynch Rail Union. All right, we got ourselves a video.
We haven't got too much power. The problem in this country is that trade unions don't have enough power. That's why so many people are suffering poor wages. That's why there's such an imbalance in the workplace. And it's a shame that the Tory party is descending into an ultra-right clique at the moment. And Liz Truss is seeking to take away human rights and the ability of the democratic right of people to express.
Okay, so oh yeah. Okay, so yeah, here in the U.S., the rail strike has been mostly about them being like on call for 24/7. 24, literally 24/7, and they have to just go as soon as they're called. And they're not allowed to have time off like at all. I know you guys have like mandated time off by law, but if here in the U.S., if they were to like get sick, they would have to go to work or get penalized up to getting fired for going to work sick, including if they had COVID, which is just bananas to me. Oh, the rail operators want it to be like here. Why I don't understand this. I don't understand why like yeah, flexible. Yeah, that's basically what's happening here is the flexible hours have meant all hours. You're on call, you're available to work all hours. Suck it up. But yeah, so Biden has managed to get a potential deal through that includes some time off. It's milk toast compared to what you guys get as far as like work life balance and stuff goes, but it's something better than what the rail carriers were willing to even approach until Biden stepped in. And like I was saying, I'm no Biden lover, but this guy's been getting some wins recently. Anyway, if you're still there, Egg Princess, I want to ask you a question about your new prime minister. I saw a video of her being like, "Yeah, I'll drop some nukes." That was That was not a particularly reassuring video. I caught that one and I was like, okay. Hopefully she just pulled a Kamala Harris. So hopefully she just pulled a Kamala Harris and just didn't have a good response to that question, because like that was not a good response to that question. Oh, really? See, that's interesting. That yes, I do know Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah, I'm not super familiar with everything that he's done, but I know he's like a. Yeah, I know he was like Bernie Sanders on steroids, which I don't necessarily consider a bad thing. Really? Really? He refused to answer the question. See, that's interesting because here in the United States, nukes are considered like the absolute last resort. Like, essentially, other nukes have to be pointed at us and in the air for nukes to be okay in the United States. Like, it's just assumed it's not cool. Wow, that's wild. That's so interesting. That I wonder why that is. I wonder because you guys don't have like a lot of there isn't like a lot of like defense issues in the UK, right? You guys don't have like a lot of enemies like chomping at the bits to get at the UK. I mean, oh, oh, so you guys are like a less serious North Korea. That's an off-color comparison, but you know what I mean. That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to look into that because I would have expected Jeremy Corbyn to be like absolutely fucking not, given the rhetoric on everything else. Like I'm not touching that nuke button at all. That's interesting that he wouldn't answer it, especially given the way it is here in the United States. It's like we sort of like we don't like fetishize dropping the nukes in World War II. It's portrayed as like a yeah. I've been watching some of the coverage of the Queen, and like it's been wild. I mean, like I understand to a degree that there's like a I understand to a degree that there's been like a there's a sort of like a celebrity status to the Queen, and the same sort of like outpouring of support will happen occasionally for big celebrities in the United States, but like the state like apparatus that's dedicated to dealing with her funeral is fucking wild to me, because it's not at all how any of this would go down here. Doesn't matter who it is. But yeah, nukes. The nukes in World War II are portrayed as like not a bad thing in the United States, but like the ends justify the means type deal. Like we really wish we hadn't had to do it, but we had to do it. Now I don't necessarily agree that we had to drop the nukes in World War II, but it's not painted in sort of like a rose colored glasses kind of light. It's sort of like a it would have been worse if we hadn't done it. We really wish we didn't have to, but it would have been worse otherwise. So and then that sort of mentality has just permeated ever since World War II, where it's like they are the last resort. They are the guarantee that if you destroy the United States, you're going to end up fucked. So don't try it. But as far as like an active, piece of our wartime arsenal, nukes have never been on the table in the United States. Now, Republicans, does Republican mean something different in the UK than it does here? where our nukes won't make much of a difference in a global nuclear war, our politicians win points by being strong. Yeah, I was watching a video that was talking about how like the sentiment in the UK right now is very like looking back on the empire with like rose-colored glasses. Aha, see? I knew Republican in the UK was something different than here. I'm not familiar with the distinctions between the terms when they overlap like that. Like me being firmly American, when I hear Republican, I just think American Republican, which are like, borderline fascist at this point. A lot of the leaders in the Republican Party in the United States are just fascist. Like it's fucking insane the things that they'll try to get done. Thankfully, it looks like at this point that their tendencies to be fascist in the United States will probably end up failing. But time will tell. So now here's a question for the UK. I have read that the only reason that the Parliament and the Prime Minister in the UK can basically operate the government in a sort of like separate way from the monarchy is because the monarchy just lets them do it. But like legally speaking, the whoever is the current reigning monarch could just be like, actually, we're doing it this way and have it be whatever the hell they want. Is this the case? Okay, all right. I was having this argument with not argument. We weren't sure what the actual answer was, because that was one of the criticisms that I saw of the Queen that didn't, because in the U.S. the discourse over the Queen is either really ridiculously just feigning over how great she was, or it's been like fuck her, she did nothing good for this world. I'm glad she's dead. And hasn't been like an in between sort of opinion. But so the only one I've heard that so it was like it's just a precedent. There's no actual legal. All right, gotcha. But the only criticism that I heard that made any like sense, that didn't seem like it was coming from like a hateful place of the Queen, was that she had the power to stop a lot of terrible things from happening and then let them happen anyway. Yes, and I have also read that the monarchs, especially the Queen, sort of do like backroom conversations with foreign dignitaries and talking weekly with the Prime Minister to sort of like try to guide the country, but never like actually physically using any of the power that comes with the state. Which, to be fair, question for you: do you think that the royals don't exert their power in like a particularly public way because they want to remain the sideshow that gets them castles and allows them to be driven around by people who are paid by the state? Like, that's the sense that I get. Well, I suppose. Okay, all right. So I had assumed that was probably how that would go, because, you know, if I could have the power to have the state drive me around and live in castles and stuff, but not actually have any power to affect anything, that would probably be a pretty good gig. I think the downfall of the monarchy is they still have power, but I suppose if they didn't have power, then they wouldn't really be a monarchy, and then at that point they would just be a sideshow. So, but it probably would be cool to have the state just give you a castle. Not saying it's right, just saying it's cool. So, see. Oh, I didn't know she could be exempted from the laws, like at her will. I thought she was just exempt from the laws, like period. Really? So she exempt? Oh, I heard about that. I did hear about that actually. Yeah, so they pass an Equality Act, and then the monarchs were just like, yeah, actually, we don't like black people. Is that is that really how that happened? Wow. Yeah, that's this is fun. I like talking about this stuff because I don't actually know that much about British monarchy, so it's interesting. Yeah, well, the media is going to do what pays their bills. That's the problem we have here in the United States. Is they're not going to go after Jeff Bezos super hard because Jeff Bezos pays a lot of their bills, in one form or another, directly or indirectly. That guy's got money in so many places. So I want to, let's see here. I want to look up. There was this. Let's see if I can find it. It might be hard, but it might help if I could spell too. YouTube recommended me a video. I was just letting it roll. All right, I'll see if I can find this video. Egg Princess said she'd be back in a second. I don't know if it's a she. It could just be a name. But let's see. I want to go to. I actually don't know. Oh, here we go. History. Let me see if I can find it. No. Man, I chug through some videos. Good Lord. Let's see what we can find. Okay. No, I must have passed it. Let's see what we got here. Oh, here we go.
A man who did love her too, Dickie Arbiter.
Let's see. This is Australian news. I didn't even realize this video was blowing my mind the other day.
Worked with her as the Queen's press secretary from 1988 to 2000.
And he joins us now live from London. Dickie, I know it is a difficult day for everyone in the UK and around the world, and for you personally.
He has the same sort of affection for the monarchy as like a kid who was adopted by like a benevolent parent that worked as like a hitman on the side. So it's like he talks about the Queen and the royals in this sort of like deeply personal way, and just like separates them entirely from anything that they could have caused. And it's so feigning, and it's so like, oh my God, the people are so sad and they're going to be lining up. Oh, I saw that there was a 36-hour line to see the Queen's coffin. Was that true, Egg Princess? Because that shit blew my mind. I don't want to wait an hour for a roller coaster, let alone for a 2-second walk past a coffin. I don't like waiting in traffic.
You were very close.
See.
It is difficult, but one's got to be pragmatic. The Queen was incredibly pragmatic. And it's interesting, isn't it? Prince Philip died on the 9th of April 2021. The Queen died today, the 9th of September 2022, 17 months later. I don't think she ever really recovered from the loss of Prince Philip. He was her liege man for 73 years, and when you've lived that long with somebody, depended on them, depended on each other, it was a tremendous loss. We saw this lonely figure sitting because of social distancing during the COVID epidemic.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Like the framing of her being like this lonely figure talking about how she no longer has her husband anymore. I mean, yeah. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. A 36-hour line is not going to be the entire city out to see her. It's not so much like I think there's this like huge outpouring of like of organic support for the Queen. I think it's just the fact that the people that did love her are willing to wait 36 hours. Like, it's like you said, it's very North Korea. Like, I wouldn't wait 36 hours to like buy a car that I really wanted. I'd be like, even if there was only one on Earth, I would not sit there for like 36 hours. And I really like cars. But this guy was like, I listened to this whole interview, and he was just constantly talking about how she's like this lonely person, and it was like so sad. And like, I mean, I guess like if you separate the fact that she was like, the queen and presided over some really bad stuff over the years, like, I guess personally, yeah, it's sad, but there's like I don't think it's good to do this for people who are like so public and so powerful. Like, Elvis was probably, you could probably argue that like Elvis was probably just like straight up sad. For several years, YouGov respected UK polling company Good King in the 30% range. 63%. Holy crap. That's like 9/11 territory in the US, when Bush went from like 50% approval to 90 after 9/11. Wow, that's wild. I saw a video today. I didn't watch it because I didn't have time, but I saw a video that was talking about how new King Charles is like being like a super diva and asking for a bunch of ridiculous stuff. Do you have anything on that? Yeah, well, I suppose their public image has taken a hit recently. 12 days of uncritical coverage of the royal family can do nothing but help them, given how things have been going recently. An inkwell, really? Good Lord, man. What it must be like. How messed up must you be in the head, like on a personal level, to like have that kind of like just constant like help around you all the time. It's like I used to hear stories about Donald Trump would like hold his hand out and just go Diet Coke, and somebody was like required to give him a Diet Coke. It's like, fuck off. Get your own Coke. Wow, this is fun. Thank you for interacting with me, being my first interaction. You've been great. This is what I was hoping to eventually get out of streaming, is just to get to talk to people. It's hard to talk to a camera, like just by yourself and monologue. So this is fun. I appreciate this. Yeah. Oh, I heard about that. What, like the heating bills in the UK had gone up like 200% or something like that. That's fucking wild. Like, I mean, Yeah, it is. I've heard that Trump's obviously a lot more belligerent than they are publicly, but there was a lot of comparisons when he was in office here in the States about him like wanting to be king because he can do that. Wow, that's really sad because Americans have this skewed idea of the way the rest of the world works because our oil market, the oil market in the United States and like the energy market is on a separate market completely from the rest of the world. So like our oil prices don't track one to one with like what your oil prices do because the United States sells its oil on a completely separate market. And it's not good here, but we have the like production capacity and ability to financially separate ourselves from like really bad stuff happening that like a lot of Americans don't realize how shit it can get. And it's hard to explain to them just how bad things can become. I mean, I'm no American rah rah here person. I think the America has a lot of really bad problems, but it's easy to see how Americans can lose connection with like the problems that actually matter when the size of the problems that the rest of the world deals with get minimized aggressively when they come into this country. It's a strength that I don't think this country appreciates enough. I really think people take for granted that it's just the way it is, and they don't realize that it's built on the back of having potentially the best geography of any country in the world, and being so far separated from any potential threats. I mean, our only borders are Canada and Mexico, and both of them are really friendly with us. So like, what do we have to worry about? There's a really amazing video that just came out recently. Let's see if I can find it. We'll pull it up. This is from the United States, but drink this fracking water. This right here.
We will proceed with the public comment portion. I would ask that whoever's interested in giving a statement to the commission.
Yep, driving this bus wrong. Okay, that's better. Let's go back here. So, this is a video. It's a Sioux County, Nebraska public meeting where there's a lot of fracking going on. And yeah, I know. I knew you couldn't hear it. I was driving the bus wrong. But this is a meeting, and they just allowed fracking in the area, and apparently it's been screwing up the water. And one of these guys, one of the four guys here, the public officials, told the guy that's about to walk up to the table that, like, yeah, you can drink the water out of the tap, perfectly fine. So then he calls him.
We will proceed with the public comment portion. I would ask that whoever's interested in giving a statement to the commission, please approach Ms. Luna, provide your sign-in sheet, and we will hear.
Where is it? Here it is.
Well, they took mine. They told me I was the first one here. Signed up, and they said, "Oh, I need to."
Just come on up and we'll.
She's bringing mine.
Okay.
My name is James Osborne. I'm from Ainsworth, Nebraska. My
Can
address.
you hear his voice?
I actually have a little bit of experience in the oil and gas field. I've helped build pipelines all over the country, and I'm on the wire about this.
All right, come on. Here we
One
go.
drink this. So what I brought, and my question is, would you drink this?
Okay, so I skipped over a little bit there, so I'll explain it. So he opened up a bottle of Dasani water and poured it out and was like, "Would you drink this?" And now he's going to pour out the water that he got out of the tap. and watch the reaction of the guys.
It's not mixed up real well.
You got that out of the tap.
Well, there's some goodies down there. I better share with these class.
Okay, so
So you told me this morning when I was in here talking to you that you would drink this water, right?
we'll get to Flint in a second, but listen to this guy's reaction.
So would you drink it? Yes or no?
Sir, we can neither comment nor...
Oh, you can't answer any questions?
They said they can't answer any questions to do with the water. And they just kept saying it over and over again, even though this guy poured out the tap water to them, to the guy that told him it was safe to drink. Poured the water out that he said it was safe to drink. Sorry, I could keep looking off to the one side. It's because my phone's running the chat so I can see. Oh, yeah. Oh, you know they're in the pocket. You know they're in the pocket. Oh, my God. Cool story. So, I used to work for this steel company. We'll get to Flint after this. This is a fun story. I used to work for the steel company. We would slit flat roll steel, and the machine that I was on had this pit. It was about 20 foot long. So what is 20 feet in meters? It's like 8 meters or something like that. So it's like 8 meters long, like 3 meters wide, and it was like another 8-ish meters deep, right? And there was a 55-gallon drum on the ground in the pit, with a sump pump that would pump the oil that would drip off the water, off the steel into the sump pump, into the 55-gallon drum. There was enough scrap steel in the bottom of this pit that I never saw the 55-gallon drum. So it was at least 3 foot deep across the entire bottom of this pit, 1 meter deep, right? And at one point, they were welding on the machine trying to fix part of it, and the sparks went down in the pit, caught the oil on fire. And the flames went all the way to the ceiling. So the ceiling was, I think it would be 12 meters high. So, 25, 30-ish feet, something like that. And went all the way to the ceiling. And the building has insulation in it, so they were worried about it catching on fire. Had to evacuate the building. Fire department shows up. Finally gets the fire under control because it's an oil fire, so you can't just use a normal fire extinguisher. And the fire marshal is pissed. He is so mad, and he walks up to the owner of the company, and he was like, "I'm gonna come back in like a month, and if that pit is not cleaned out, I'm gonna call whoever I need to call to shut this fucking place down." And sure enough, the guy comes back a month later. There's 4 machines in the building, right? All of them have pits. He walks past the small machine, looks in the pit. Walks past one of the other big machines, looks in the pit. Walks to the biggest machine, looks in the pit. Comes past the machine that caught on fire, walks right past it like it's not even there. And gives like a clean bill of health to the company, even though they never cleaned the pit out. And every time he would show up to do the inspection, he would skip that machine. He did it for years. And we were all convinced that the owner was greasing his pocket on the way in, like giving him like, here's $200, don't look at that one machine. And we're convinced, because why else would he skip the machine that caught on fire? So getting to Flint. So what happened in Flint was actually a really interesting issue that wasn't like trying to be super cheap or like doing anything particularly wrong. It was an error, and the error didn't get fixed in time, and that's where the problem came from with Flint, Michigan. It wasn't that the water got bad, it was that they didn't fix it once it got bad. Whereas this fracking water and stuff is like the decision that made the water bad was a bad decision. Whereas the decision that made the Flint, Michigan water bad was just a mistake. It wasn't a bad decision. So if you know anything about lead pipes are dangerous if the lead in the pipes gets into the water. But somebody figured out a long time ago, I forget which guy it was, but he won all kinds of awards for this discovery, that if you put a certain chemical in low concentrations in the water, it's completely harmless to people. But if you mix that chemical if you mix that chemical with a very mild electric charge, so just a couple of amps, bunch of volts, totally harmless if somebody accidentally touches a pipe. If you mix that chemical into the water and then put a small electric charge through all the pipes, the chemical will create a surface on the inside of the pipes that will prevent the lead from coming off. It basically will like coat it, like galvanizing steel, how you get that like thin layer of zinc on the steel that stops it from rusting. It's basically the same thing, but for lead pipes. And as long as you keep adding the chemical and keep the electric charge on the pipes will not deteriorate from the inside out. They can still break from the outside in. You can still have pipe breaks, but then that's just a matter of replacing the pipes. So that's how all of the cities in the United States that still have lead pipes don't end up with water problems, is because they all use this system. But in Flint, they were using this system on their old water source. But to save some money on their water bills for the city, they were actively trying to lower the price of water bills in the city. They decided to switch to the Detroit water system, which didn't use the chemical and the electrical system, and nobody caught the error. Nobody at any point in the chain like discovered this miscalculation. Now all the investigations that have been done have turned up that there was no neglect in this situation outside of just ignorance and not and making mistakes. And so what happened is once the chemical and the electric charge were removed from the system, all the lead pipes started to leach in Flint. And they leached to the point, and this is where the erroneous mistakes come in, the ones where people were actively being shitheads, was the fixing of the system didn't happen once they found out that there was a problem. And once the problem became public, they then drug their feet, partially because funding wasn't available from the federal government because of the way funding works in the United States. Whoever is the operator of the public system has to pay for it. So, and if they need money from somewhere else, like the state or the federal level, they have to apply. So Flint, Michigan, the city, runs the water system. So they don't have unfettered access to the state's money or the federal government's money to fix something. So once they found out that there was a problem with the water and then didn't do anything about it, and then it became public, well, at that point, they've already fucked up. But to fix it, they had to jump through all these red tape hoops to get funding to fix Flint's water problem. And that's why it still hasn't been fixed, is because there's paperwork hurdle after paperwork hurdle after paperwork hurdle, because the local government is responsible for fixing their own infrastructure that they operate. And the local government doesn't have the money to fix it. So they have to keep applying for money from higher levels of government, state or federal, to get money to fix things. And the Flint water crisis has ballooned. It keeps going up in money because they keep having to fix more and more stuff. So they keep needing to go back to the table to get more money, and it just drags the whole process out. This is the screwed up way that infrastructure is paid for in the United States. It's why there are 3 different levels of roads. You have local roads that are paid for at the city level. You have state routes, which are paid for at the state level. And then you have interstates, which are run by the federal government and are paid for by the federal government. And the federal government has basically a bottomless pocketbook. So the interstates are constantly being worked on. But the state routes and the local roads will absolutely turn to hot shit before they get fixed. Because there's like a bar, that there's a level of badness that the roads have to hit before the money then becomes available from the next level of government to fix the roads, if the money isn't already there in the budget. So those financial hurdles mixed with that first mistake and then the negligence is what has screwed Flint for so long. I'm not letting anybody off the hook with that story. It's just, that's what happened. Yes, it is cheaper just to sort it out and move on. But in the United States, Nothing just gets sorted out and moved on because there's layers of bureaucracy layered upon bureaucracy, and then the governments themselves, outside of a few exceptions like snowplows and trash trucks and stuff like that, they don't employ anybody that can fix infrastructure. So there was this amazing story that came out of Tokyo. You might have seen it. It was like 6 or 7 years ago. Like a sinkhole opened up in Tokyo and ate an entire like half of a city intersection. And the Japanese government had it fixed in like 48 hours. Like they filled it in, repoured the roads, painted all the lines, had the electrical hooked up, all the plumbing, fixed the building foundations. Everything was done in like 48 hours. And it was done that way because the Japanese government employs the people to fix it. So it was literally as simple as being like, go fix it. Whereas in the United States, if like a sinkhole opens up and it needs fixed, the government doesn't employ anybody that can fix it. So first they have to get the money from wherever they get the money from. Then once they get the money from, they have bidding wars with construction companies who will then bid on a price to fix it. And then they'll show up, somebody will bid lower, and the government will give the contract to that company. Then that company will then rent the equipment that they need and bring their guys on site. And then they'll start working on it. But because it's a bidding war contract, they always underbid what it actually costs. So it ends up costing more than the estimate that the company gave. But because it costs more, they then have to go back to the table for more money. And then because they have to go back to the table for more money, the level of government that's handling it has to make sure they can pay for it. If they can't, they have to go back to the table for more money from the next level. And it's just a whole pile of crap. And that's why stuff... Yes, I agree. There's instances where I think having a private contractor to do some things is justified, but if it's anything serious, like there's just no fucking reason. There's just yeah, you lost billions. Did you see the checks the U.S. wrote? Like, for fuck's sake. There was this brilliant thing that happened at the White House Twitter account a couple of weeks ago. But Biden decided he was going to do that student loan forgiveness, and a bunch of Republican senators and congressmen came out against the student loan forgiveness. And then somebody, I don't know who it is, but whoever's running the White House Twitter account like woke up and took their Adderall or something, because they started quoting the senators that were against the student loan forgiveness. They started quoting their quotes and then underneath putting how much money in PPE loans they got forgiven. So it was like Marjorie Taylor Greene is like she got like $1 million forgiven, and she's against student loan forgiveness. I was like, fuck, that's good. Again, Biden suddenly growing a spine. Like, who'd have thought it? I didn't think he had it in him. Nobody thought he had it in him. The fact that he didn't stop that, I mean, like, I know obviously he's not the one writing the tweets, but the fact that the man, my hair, what the hell? See, in that, I don't know how that would work in the UK, but in the United States, it wouldn't work. In the US, you wouldn't be able to get rid of the fascist creep without somehow getting the lefties that are like super like unrelenting pro speech to like back off that particular sentiment, because there's a lot of lefties out there that have good ideas all the way through, but then are like, actually I want to make sure that like Nazis can post on Twitter, and it's like I don't know of a good way to like not to prevent Nazis from posting on Twitter that isn't ripe for some kind of other abuse by Twitters and stuff. But oh, well, what you're talking about is different from what I was talking about. Yes, I do think that Trump is going to end up indicted. It's going that it seems to be going that way. I don't know what he's going to get indicted for or what level of government is going to indict him. It may be like New York State that does it, but it looks like they're building up some kind of case because this damn the classified document scandal that's come out, it just keeps getting worse. It's like, and then Trump can't stop incriminating himself on Twitter. You know, they sent out that photo of all the empty boxes with the folders of classified documents like strewn on the floor, and Trump was like, they clearly planted them there. And then immediately after that, he tweeted, you overestimate the U.S. government. But so they tweeted that they sent out a message, or he sent out a message that said like they planted all of those folders on the floor. Those weren't there before. And then like 5 minutes later, he's like, actually, no, they're making my house look dirty. All of the classified documents were actually in the empty folders. And it's like, bro, you just admitted to having classified documents in public. Like, like it just keeps getting worse for the guy. But the reason I say you overestimate the federal government is because having classified documents is a fairly like it's legally pretty cut and dry, but as far as like the ramifications of it, provided none of the information got out, which we don't actually know if any of the information got out yet, but the ramifications of him having classified documents at Mar-a-Lago that let's assume the information in the documents didn't get out to anybody who could use it, they're a lot less severe than like say Watergate. Like Watergate was worse as far as like, yeah, right. but like Watergate was like arguably worse for like of an act than just taking classified documents, provided nobody saw the documents that shouldn't see them. And they just let Nixon off for it. And pretty much everybody associated with Nixon that was involved with the scandal. So it's like the U.S. government has a history of just letting presidents off with stupid shit. So that's why I'm like, you might be overestimating the government there. Now, state governments are a different beast. They're a little more, they're more radical on the whole. There isn't really such thing as a center state. They're all either really far right or closer to the middle right or middle left or really far left. And far left is relative in America. I'm fully aware that there are no far left states in the United States relative to how like most of Europe is. Yeah. The New York Attorney General is like going ham on people. She's gone after, I think, 3 or 4 Trump like lackeys that were in his late presidential, result in Trump being indicted, although it's not aimed directly at him, it's aimed at the Trump organization. She has gotten the NRA banned from New York. The NRA was registered and headed up in New York as a nonprofit, and she got them banned in New York. Now I think they're going to reopen in Texas, but regardless, she got them banned from New York, and she's currently working on getting the Trump organization probably banned from New York, which very likely will lead to some other things involving the Trump family. I mean, she's going ham. I think she's being hamstrung by the powers that be, being like, all right, don't move too quickly. Make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's. Don't do anything hasty. Slow down. But I think in her heart of hearts, she would love to just nail all those people right to the wall. Well, I was rereading where your spelling mistake was because I didn't catch it the first time I read it. I was like, "What? Spelled something wrong? Where?" Anyway, it is 10 p.m. right now. I don't know what time it is where you are, but my actually, I can check right now. Let's check, shall we? And schedules, available work. So I don't have to work tomorrow. So that's all right, I guess. I'd like to work tomorrow. I had a short week this week, but you know, whatever. I don't know if I'd call it a core of politicians. They're pretty fringe at this point. Most politicians in the United States are either actively bad, actively corrupt, or actively ineffectual. It's a very small minority of politicians out there that are actually like trying to get stuff done. But to be fair, and this is a positive change in the United States, provided it comes quick enough to stave off the gerrymandering from the Republicans. The White House and the Democrats have seemingly come to the conclusion that they can't leave the donors behind, which is fair in the United States. I don't like it, but it is the way that it is. They can't leave the donors behind. Yes, it is positive that she is the Attorney General for sure, but she could easily be removed if she stepped a little too far out of line. But the Democrats in the U.S. seem to have realized that liberal policies, especially business-friendly to a fault liberal policies, are not the way to go. It hasn't worked for them. Their approval ratings have plummeted by just sort of letting things ride out. And then as soon as they start doing something, as soon as they're like, actually, we're actually going to try to do something now, and they get some legislative victories passed. Granted, they're not very big, but they are legislative victories, which is more than we usually get. All of a sudden, their approval rating starts going up, and now they're probably not going to keep control of the government in all three branches going into the midterms, but they're probably it's increasingly likely that they won't lose both chambers. And the fact that they won't lose both chambers is ridiculous at this point. They were so far behind. So I hope that if there's enough time between now and when the point of no return happens with the gerrymandering and the Republicans trying to rule by minority, that lesson that doing something is better than doing nothing. It doesn't actually matter which one they keep. The Senate is easier to keep than the House is, but it doesn't actually matter. So the way the system works in the United States is the two houses have slightly different responsibilities, but they're essentially equal in power. So if a bill passes in the House, it then has to go to the Senate. And the Senate has to either pass or deny the same bill. And if they deny the same bill, they can then pass their own version of the bill with different changes. And then if they pass that bill and the House has passed the other bill, then the two bills will get reconciled together into a bill that's potentially amenable to both chambers. And then if both chambers agree on a version of the bill, then that bill goes to the president, and the president gets veto power. And if the president vetoes, they can then suggest changes to it. No, either chamber can bring up a bill and can pass it and then send it to the other one. So the House, but there's rules for whether or not the bill gets taken up. So just because that's how the House got away with passing so many things when Trump was in office. I mean, it was just one after another, just bill after bill after bill was passing the House when the Democrats had the House but not the Senate and the presidency. It was because the House can just pass bills all damn day, but it's going to go to the Senate and it's going to die. And the Democrats knew that at the time, so that's why the bills coming out of the House during that 2-year period on the back half of Trump's presidency, it was just good bill after good bill after good bill after good bill, because all the Democrats who normally wouldn't vote for it knew it was going to die. Yes, it was political strategy, but it was bad political strategy because nobody in the United States follows. Well, not nobody, but most people don't follow politics closely enough to actually know if a bill was passed in the House and not in the Senate. They only give a shit if it actually passes everything. So passing a bunch of bills and having none of them pass was bad political strategy, because the people who weren't paying attention didn't know they passed them, and the people who were paying attention knew they were full of shit. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the follow. The first follower that wasn't one of my friends. Anyway, yeah, the legislature in the United States controls the bills that come out. So each house basically has a pissing contest over, or each chamber has a pissing contest over which bills they want to try to pass. Oh, thank you very much. Each chamber has a pissing match over which bills they actually want to pass, and then the president gets to sign off if the pissing match results in both of them pissing the same amount of piss, if that makes sense. But the president cannot write any legislation himself. He can propose bills, but there's no legal mechanism for the president to force a vote on a bill. So if Biden wanted to write a version of Build Back Better, he could write the bill. It could be legally sound. And thank you very much. I was hoping it would. I mean, I've been trying to convince myself that I am that all the time I spend trying to follow what happens with the world wasn't for nothing. So thank you. I appreciate it greatly. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, so Biden could make he could write his own version of Build Back Better that's legally sound and is not really up for debate on whether or not it would be kosher to pass it legally. But just because he has a functional bill that he has written doesn't mean that it has to be voted on. Basically, he writes it and he passes it off to some senator, and that senator can bring it up for a vote or not. And then the filibuster in the Senate is the big hurdle to getting anything done, because you only need 50 votes, half the Senate, to pass a bill, but you need 60 votes to stop arguing about the bill. which is what the filibuster is. You hear it talked about a lot in the United States. So you need 2/3 of the Senate, which is impossible to get because it's basically split 50-50 on average over the years, Republican and Democrat. So you never, ever have 60 votes. This is the big criticism of Obama, was he had a supermajority in the Senate. He could have overcome the filibuster on anything that he wanted to pass, and everything he passed was milquetoast for his entire presidency. But so the filibuster requires 60 votes to break, and the filibuster just says that if you propose a bill and a senator doesn't want that vote to pass, or that bill to pass, they can invoke the filibuster. And the filibuster means that there has to be a procedural vote before the actual vote that requires 60 votes to then go to the regular vote. So it's an absolutely asinine system that is a holdover from Congresses past arguing with each other and trying to find legal loopholes. And I mean, the filibuster isn't even in the Constitution. It's just something that they wrote one day and then it's changed over the years. But essentially, it means that any bill that you want to pass in the United States requires 2/3 of the Senate to pass. You can pass anything through the House with half the House. But in the Senate, you need 60 because every bill that comes up for vote gets filibustered unless it's the military budget. So there's no way to democratically produce outcomes in the Senate because every state gets 2 senators regardless of the population. So California, which has a population of like, I don't even know. We'll look it up here real quick. California population. California has 40 million people in it. So there's 40 million people in California, and there's like 680,000. Yeah, I've been told that once or twice. But yeah, money is the big deciding factor in the United States on career in politics. You either have to have money or you have to know people with money, and I have neither of those. So, if this ends up becoming something big, maybe, if I get a decent following and I can potentially get some like actual donations, then yeah, in the future maybe. But right now, I have no chance, and I know that. Yeah, the getting into a staffer role is harder in the United States than you think it would be, mostly due to like conflicts with work schedule. We don't really have time here for that unless you work like some shitty shift. So, I could do it, but it would require a time commitment that I just don't have. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's that way with all kinds of stuff. I got passed over for several supervisor roles in my time due to nepotism. One of them was actually the supervisor's kid, like legit his kid. But but that one doesn't particularly bother me. The kid that got the supervisor or will be getting the supervisor position in the future, he's a good guy. He's, I was told that I could have the position, and then they gave it to him instead. But he's not undeserving of the role. He's a good guy. But yeah, nepotism is rampant everywhere in the United States. It's the main reason why the meritocracy is a lie. It's not even money. Money helps, but in the United States, most money is transferred through family. So that's just nepotism. Like technically it's wealth, but it's nepotism. It's just nepotism of wealth. So anyway, so California has like 40 million people in it, and Wyoming, which is the least populous state, has like 680,000. But those 2 states have the same amount of power in the Senate because each state gets 2 senators. So 680,000 people have the same amount of voting power as 40 million because of the way the Senate is set up. There's goods and bads to this. Because of the way the election system is set up, the Senate is much easier to take over or hold if your position it's much less reactionary to the redrawing of districts in a state. If like 52% of the population of a state votes for a Democrat, it's likely that the Democrat will get the seat. Whereas in the House, which is much closer to a true Democratic, true Democratic like representation, where Wyoming gets significantly less seats in the House than California does, but the districts are drawn in such a way that here in Ohio, where I live, 53% I think it was. 53% of the state's population voted for Democrats, but 60% of the state House seats and the state legislature seats and 60% of the federal House seats went to Republicans, even though 53% of the population voted Democrat. So the Senate is a mixed bag. The House it more closely tracks technically democratically with the country, but it's easier for the popular vote of a state to elect a senator than for the popular vote of a state to properly track onto the distribution of representatives in the House, if that makes sense. So we would ultimately, us on the left in the United States, we would ultimately like to see. Oh, you're headed out. Okay, cool. I enjoyed talking to you. I like it. I like this banter. I hope to do this more often with people. So thank you very much. I will. I guess I'll just end this here then. Thank you. I'll catch you another time.